That's what God means when He says adopted. It's not, you're not up for grabs anymore. He claims you and adopts you into His family. A lot of times we think of adoption as this thing that happens because somebody can't take care of a baby or whatever. No. Listen, men, you're the adopted son of God. From New Life Ministries, this is Going Deeper with Stephen Arterburn. I'm Stephen Arterburn. And Going Deeper is all about taking the tough issues, the hard issues of life, looking a little bit deeper inside so that we can gain some insight into our lives. Hi, Steve Arterburn here, and welcome to Going Deeper. You know, there is a wonderful author. He's not alive anymore. His name was Brennan Manning. And he was just an amazing writer and speaker. It's not his real name, actually. He took on a different name. Because when he was in the army, he was in a foxhole with his buddy. All of a sudden, a live grenade landed in that foxhole. His buddy was smoking a cigarette. He took one last puff, flicked it away, and fell on the live grenade and saved Brennan's life. And of course, he was killed instantly. So the guy that fell on the grenade, his name was Brennan Manning. And so Brennan took on his name and lived out a life in honor of the life that saved him. Brennan was a very wise man. Knew recovery. He also knew relapse. He said this, he says, define yourself radically as one that is beloved by God. This is the true self. Every other identity is an illusion. Now, it sounds just like what Henry Nouwen said in yesterday's edition of this. We have to take on the identity of being loved by God. And when we are loved by God and we know we're loved by God, then maybe we would have the courage to do the right thing and be a hero for God, be a hero for ourselves and our family. You know, Adam, first guy right out here on the open, first human being on the earth, he was a hero, naming the animals, all this stuff, hero to Eve. And then all of a sudden, the hero becomes the victim. And, you know, he really only had two things not to do. He needed to not eat that fruit, and he needed to watch out for snakes. And he and Eve failed at those. And so when the choice comes to eat, he eats, and then he blames her like a little victim and says, Eve made me eat it, or the woman made me eat this. All of a sudden, the hero, the first man, fails God miserably. You know, we do that. We're called to be heroes, called to be providers. And every time we lust or view pornography or something else, we go from provider to taker to thief, looking at things we're not entitled to look at, destroying our spiritual life and our connection with others and God. So we go from a provider to a taker. Then also we go from leader to loser. We stumble and we don't obey, and it just creates all sorts of problems for us. If we really knew who we were and what God had given us, maybe we wouldn't be anything but a hero. It says in Scripture that God adopts us into His family. Like, we're not worthy, but when we accept Christ, we're adopted into God's family. Now you might say, well, what? Does that mean we're not really in the family, but we're kind of half in, we're adopted? Let me tell you about adoption back in biblical times. There could be a wealthy man up on the hill with vineyards everywhere, and a poor man with a little tiny farm down below. Up here, the owner of this huge estate might be dissatisfied with his oldest son and his youngest son. He has the right to disown both of those sons. But he's admired the hard work of the young man down on the farm working with his dad. This happened back in those days. That man's servant goes down and talks to the father of that young man and says, the wealthy man up on the hill with the huge estate and all the vineyards, I work for him. And he would like to meet your son because he believes he wants to adopt your son. If he adopts your son, here's what he will give to you. And it'll be quite a gift. So the father says yes, and off they go up the hill. If it goes well, the head of all of this adopts this boy, and he becomes the heir to everything. Not his sons, but his adopted son. And here's the key. In adoption law, you could disown your own child, but once you adopted a child, you couldn't unadopt them. You couldn't disown them. You chose them, you picked them, they're yours. That's what God means when He says adopted. It's not, you're not up for grabs anymore. He claims you and adopts you into His family. A lot of times we think of adoption as this thing that happens because somebody can't take care of a baby or whatever. No. Listen, men, you're the adopted son of God. Now, you're going to live into it, live out of it, take the mantle of leadership over all this estate that God has given us, or are you just going to be the mild, meek guy who might believe there's a God, but doesn't really believe that God is in you and empowering you, and He's given you everything that you need because you're adopted. You're His adopted son. I tell you, when you realize it, how amazing that is, you want to be a hero. All of this I'm talking about is right there in the book, The Soul of a Hero. And you can get that at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Thank you for joining me for Going Deeper. I hope something I've said may have helped just a little bit. If you have a question you'd like me to answer or comment, just email me at stevesocial@newlife.com. I'll see you next time.
If you want to support Going Deeper with Stephen Arterburn, be sure to subscribe so you never miss another episode. And if you know someone who would benefit from this episode, be sure to share it with them. See you on the next Going Deeper with Stephen Arterburn from New Life Ministries.